Commissioned in '56, distinguished DMG, Distinguished Military Graduate, and was a Ranger, Airborne, Special Forces patch holder. So you know he had all the tickets to start the process. But you didn't know anything about his soul, and we learned about his soul. In August 30th, 1965, as some of you know by reading the newsletter, he got involved as a Special Forces A Detachment Commander in a nasty firefight along the Song So Ha River. Out of 30, 20 were dead. He was one of the 10 alive. Brought his interpreter out over his back. Got his shoulder out, shot up. Face all shot up. And then rallied the force behind him because he had a bunch of might force behind him. Counterattacked. He'd wiped out most of them and got an exchange ratio of 6-to-1. So he lost 20. You can figure out how many he got on bad guys. For that, he got a Silver Star. But as he said, kind of tongue-in-cheek, you know, I was one among the living. You know, they tend to give medals to the living. And I happen to be damn lucky about it. But I would just tell you that was a humble opinion because it took personal courage to do all of that. And it just gives you a measure of the man. The Army then decided to go give him a master's degree in English. Now, for some of us, we were lectured about Chaucer and Shakespeare. And in fact, they asked him, and I said, did you ever get back to that middle period of the English language? And he said, yeah, to those that are tortured in Pikes Peak College, that he had afterwards. He also had a terrific love for his family. Okay? For some of us in the years 71, 72, we learned all about Billy, his wife. We learned all about Melanie, Firebase Melanie, and Amy. And somewhere in between Jeffers and Makowski's, there were accidents about how these names were. He would have invented some other ladies' names, but he took care of his family's girls to make sure they were properly recognized. Now, after he finished his tour in Vietnam, and by the way, in the middle of the tour, he was called back to give some advice to the chief about what really transpires on the ground. Came back, scared the holy hell out of all of us, because we had a comfort zone around him being around in the air. He ended up becoming a brigade commander in 101st. In fact, he and I traded some professional notes about what it took to run air assault operations in a European environment. And subsequently chief of staff of the 4th ID, where he ran into most of the notables that ran the Army in the 90s and the early 2000s. So I would tell you that he was a consummate leader, consummate commander. And at this point, I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about the kinds of things he did while we were over there. Because he got to be known as Sir TB. There was an empire around A.O. Billy or A.O. Melanie. God forbid that anybody trespassed in that A.O., screwed up combat air assaults or fast movers coming in, or raped the POL buckets, because there was only so much to go around. Or worse yet is, we're alert patrol going in and then causing trouble because you had to bail them out because some company got on a short final. And there's somewhere on this table where we got called in to be on a short final because some damn patrol got in trouble. And so he got pretty cantankerous about anybody that wandered into his territory, and he got pretty territorial about that. I mean, he was the alpha male of that outfit. Now, he was also what I call the orchestrator par excellence of skirmishes and firefights. He had a nose when shit was going to happen. Now, when he had that nose, he started orchestrating. And so pretty soon, you'd see pink birds, and you'd see aerial artillery, and you got the artillery warmed up, and if that need be, the medevacs would be starting to bore holes in the sky, and the FAC would start coming over, and all those things, which is what you do as a great commander. But he was also damn good at spotting. Now, mind you, some people were better at spotting than others, even if the only thing they had on the ground was a friggin' cigarette lighter. Now, why anybody would go into combat with no pop, no smoke to pop, no strobe lights, nothing, but have a damn cigarette light, I'll never know, but somehow I made sense out of that mess and got that group out of there. Now, as much as he orchestrated things in the field, okay, I would also tell you, he was pretty damn good at pinochle. He was better at combat volleyball, stuff the ball right in your face and say, you know, you ought to try a little bit harder. Now, mind you, he's 6'2" or 6'3", 220 pounds. There's no reason that the TB didn't stand for Blagg, but bear. And then when he got caught short on his rules of adjudication, he'd always say, cut me some slack. So, let me give you a replay here, just for what happened, because he launched in the sky and just controlled his territory, and Skipper 6. Mountain 6. Now, mind you, he's going along kind of chop. Skipper 6, Mountain 6. Skipper 6, Mountain 6. So then he flipped the internal. Angry Skipper 6, this is Stone Mountain 6. So about that time, some poor RTO who was handing the net say, Skipper, I think the boss must have you. Now, if it was a bad day, it's, let's get the fuck up on the battalion net. If it was a good day, is I'd like you to come up on the battalion net. Now, when you heard that language, you're in for deep shit. You weren't going to Vung Tau, that's for sure. But invariably, you'd end up building some fire base. And that was not necessarily construed as good news by all the soldiers on the ground. In fact, they would accuse me of having sold out the battalion commander, because building a fire base meant that you got scrutinized, you had to get shaved, and you had to do all these other things. But he also had a sense of humor. And I got to bore you with this a little bit. As you know, sometimes we get fed on the third and fourth day one hot meal. Well, mess daddies come and go, and some of them are better than others. In this case, in late '71, we had a mess daddy who was kind of cavalier about that. And so instead of getting a decent meal, and mind you, I had just run a mess hall for 400 people at Fort Riley, Kansas for the Big Red One. I knew how the hell good food ought to be. Well, this one was like slopping hogs. So I took umbrage. And one day I got on an aircraft and I went back and saw Mess Daddy. And I took all that stuff that was on the chow on the ground. And I said, this is what you're going to feed, and you can explain it to TB. I'm taking the chow that's on your line. And by the way, the next time you do that, I'm going to chase an MM16 round up your butt. So, Sir TB had a sense of humor about this. And the only message I ever got was, Kutter, next time just cut Mess Daddy a little slack. His message was, you did the right thing for the soldiers on the ground. And that was great. Now, what are some lessons learned? Treat the artillery nice, because they can put rounds in the right place, especially if I can help you. Now, mind you, I was not a friend necessarily of the artillery, because A, they didn't know how to read a friggin' map, and B, sometimes you could get it up in the sky in the right place, and all it took a minor adjustment, some dude back there, and all of a sudden it was getting a little too close. In another case, as I told you, it was pretty territorial. And that territorialness, I got to appreciate, because I put a lot of LRP teams in after I came out as company command. And LRP teams had a bad habit. They had a bad habit of not knowing where the hell we're going. They had a bad habit of not having all their equipment. They had chutzpah. So they were in trouble. So he said, look, at the end, you check them out, and nobody else gets in our territory and controls them. And his quote was, nobody takes a Sierra in my AO unless I know about it. You can figure out what Sierra stands for. Now, there were some lessons learned that we took with us as a generation. Just as much as we learned today about the ones that we left behind on the wall, and the wounded, and those that are having the traumas that are haunting them. I would tell you that 2 generations later, non-commissioned officers and officers who are now the commanding officers and senior non-commissioned officers today in Iraq and Afghanistan, okay, some of you know this gentleman. Because we trained in combat. We used every basic set of ammunition when we came off the missions and trained anti-ambush drills and everything else to get it about right. And we made sure that our non-coms and leads knew what they were supposed to do in a firefight. So Tom, we have you to thank for that. You've been a role model. And you just don't know how many countless general officers and senior non-coms that I know today are thankful for the kinds of lessons that you imparted on the soldiers and leaders on the ground. With that, I give you Tom Blagg. Sir, Tom Blagg.